to come and be with us this evening. I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to say a special shout out to my constituency office staff, Regina, Nadira, and Shamar in the front. Please give them a round of applause as well. You know, I know them is feel it like how I feel it. Because they work 7 days a week, 365, morning, noon, and night. So when they hear, they say, oh, you ain't doing nothing, I know them is feel bad too. And one thing I wanted to tell those of you in the party to hold firm. And when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself too. Because no matter what you do, no matter where you go, I mean, Jesus Christ could be the best example to tell you that people can still talk and still try to pull you down. But what is our saying? Our saying is stay focused and stay the course. Because we are on a course to save Barbados. We are on a course to improve Barbados. And that is what the Barbados Labour Party has been doing. We had mission survival and we now on mission empowerment. Mission survival is the fact that as the party came to office, and when I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But when we came to office, we were heading towards a devaluation. And the Barbados Labour Party pulled us back from the brink of destruction. We were living in a society, as the rest will tell you, but we have to reiterate it. We have to repeat it because education is done through repetition. I want to remember when we were in primary school, we were here A, B, C, D every day to get tired. But now you can repeat it right. So let me go down the road. We were living in a society where you can't get a bus. You was at a bus stop for 5 hours. You were living in a society where you hear about potholes can't done. They got a lot less now. You're seeing roads getting do right. You were living in a society where they had a lot of flies, not bees. They had a lot of flies because the garbage didn't get picked up and because they had sewage on the streets. The Barbados Labour Party is the party that brought us back from that. That is why today Barbados is better than it was yesterday because we are on a mission. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, I want to have a very serious conversation with you this evening. And the conversation is that as a party, we must continue to be united. Because you know who ain't united? You know which party ain't united? And out there, you know, that is not the Barbados Labour Party. We must continue to stick together to be the party to build a better Barbados. Not the party of destruction and deception. That is not the Barbados Labour Party way. So I urge us to continue to be united. You know, whenever I walk, I just get two sides of a spectrum. I just get pure love, hugs and kisses can't done, and then on the other side is get bare licks. I got bare lashes for you. Barbados Labour Party family, I don't need lashes, I need support. I don't need lashes, I need advice. I don't need lashes, I need guidance. I don't need lashes, I need assistance. And that is why I call upon the party to do each and every member of the party is what makes up the party. Not the 30 of us in Parliament, 29 now. Not the executive alone. But every member supporter of the Barbados Labour Party is what makes us. Because I want to tell you all something. Without you all, I am nothing. Without you all, not only on election day with an X and vote, but without you all are my jet fuel. Because if I do not have your support and your love, your assistance, your guidance, your kind words, your moral support, I cannot chug along. I would be like the engine that was, not the engine that is. And that is why, as I give you an update about where we are going today, I want to address you on some projects and some programs and some progress that is happening for the city of Bridgetown through the branch, through the constituency, and through the good work of the Barbados Labour Party. Now, there are lots of things happening, but I will just point out some specific ones this evening because they don't want to be going over ones we've been over already. I want to tell you that houses, and jobs continue to be a major concern of many of the constituents and residents of the city of Bridgetown. And I want to tell you how we are addressing it. Not through talk, not through rhetoric, but through effort and results. I want to tell you that the other concerns speak to, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the member for St. Michael South, my brother, my friend, the Honorable Kurt Humphrey, Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. You could take my chair, man. I ain't frightened. They ain't time. We have my seat. Yeah, elections they call. You have that seat, man. Make yourself comfortable. Make yourself at home. I was giving my address, but I can hand over to the guest speaker, introduce the guest speaker as soon as I finish this. The other concerns speak to daily living Roads and infrastructure. Okay. And no problem. I know the room small and the family big. But as I tell you, all get close. Like a ZR van or like a Barbados Labour Party family. And we can fit in here today. Keep the chairs coming. See what the Barbados Labour Party event is, can't carry all, you gotta turn back. Okay, so just listen in as we get the chairs flowing. And we got chairs flowing, not tears flowing. You understand what I'm saying? Good. All right, the other concerns that we have within this constituency is daily living. And that's one of the reasons I invited my brother here to speak to what is happening on the social protection platform, the welfare platform, the people empowerment platform. He's the best person to speak to that. The other things is roads and infrastructure, and we will be joined by Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Transport Works. She will speak to those issues, and of course, community activities. In relation to housing, I want to tell you that we are in line for some facelifts to deal with some issues and to deal with some deeds in Pondside, London-Bourne Towers, and Kensington Lodge. Those are the issues that I am knocking at the door, bumming at the door, begging, writing, pleading, negotiating, and at least seeing a little on it. There's something that the Deputy Prime Minister is working on in terms of the facelifts, and if she cared to speak to it, she will speak to it in her speech. I will allow her to speak to that. It depends on how far along things are. You know, sometimes you speak to it and you're ready, and you're talking like you're talking 4 seasons. You understand? So what we want to do is leave it until we got a little bit more information there. In terms of urban revitalization and urban renewal, the city is in line again, fingers crossed, prayers going up, hands clasped and eyes closed, through the Saudi project, where we're looking at an injection in the corridor of Chapman Lane, New Orleans, Kensington, New Road, Lake Follies, and coming right around to look at improved housing, improved community, and climate resilience. I believe that that would be a serious upgrade and to the benefit of the citizens and of Bridgetown, but of course of Barbados as well. In terms of housing, the next set of housing projects, as reported by the Ministry of Housing, is scheduled for Mason Hall Street. And again, you will stay tuned and hear more from the Ministry of Housing on that directly. Of course, you will see houses starting to build on Kensington New Road. And that is to do some relocating from Murphy's Pasta. And of course, you see those opposite Allen Court on White Park Road. Those houses there are really transitional homes for Green Park as we prepare to rebuild Green Park. So, Greenfield, sorry. So then what that does is tells you in terms of housing, houses, and jobs that we are trying our best. What also is happening in terms of UDC, Urban Development Commission, I've had a number of meetings with them over the last few weeks, and what that meeting was really to do is to deal with the system that we have in relation to giving cases to them, getting updates from them, and getting progress from them. Because sometimes I believe we got to go to the root of these cases. We got to go to the root of the issues, the root of the problem. And sometimes the root might be something as simple as, or as difficult as, depending on how you look at it, as communication and the system you use to get these things done. So let me wrap up there for housing and houses, go on quickly on to jobs, employment, and empowerment to let you know what the City of Bridgetown constituency is doing in relation to jobs, employment, and empowerment. Now, over the last few weeks, ill or not ill, I have been meeting with a number of well-wishers, supporters, sponsors in areas that we can create economic empowerment for people. Jobs don't fall like rain. Sometimes you have to go and create them. One of the things that a number of persons that have a deep interest in Nelson Street during the day have highlighted to me is the fact that they would like to do plastering and painting and improve Nelson Street and create a kind of New Orleans vibes. They have took me through there for a number of site visits. One of the reasons why I had to beg for an excuse from the last luncheon, I went to the church service. I was there. I was present. I read the lesson and all. Some people said they didn't see me, but I probably sleep through that. But I can tell you, I had to get an excuse from there because some of the sponsors, potential sponsors, wanted to go and meet to look at our project. But our project for me is not about paint or plastering. It's about beautification, yes, but it is about if we can get a street party vibe there, that is economic activity, particularly for the people of Nelson Street, Wellington Street, Commermere Street, Vine Street, and all the other streets down in there. That is what that project is about for me. Similar things are about to happen for Boxers Road. Now I share Boxers Road with another friend, which is Christchurch West, and we will continue to work on getting improvement for Boxers Road. Boxers Road used to be what Oistins is now. And I don't want to take away from Oistins, but I want to give the people and the tourists of Barbados another option. Come to the street that they used to sleep, but it's asleep right now. We can wake it up. Bring the alarm clock. Again, once that gets going, what that does, it provides jobs and economic opportunity, business opportunity for people. Not only just the people that selling the fish, but the people that selling the seasoning, the people that selling the fish, the people that selling the juices, the people that selling the fish, and there's a trickle-down effect. There's another exciting project that I'll speak to in part here again, which is Pelican. And I don't mean Pelican, I mean Pelican. And Pelican have been redeveloped into a project called Pelican. Peli is the pelican, and Peli can do weddings. Peli can do World Cup fan zone. Peli can do a lot of things after World Cup. So the idea of that is how do we turn in there again into another nightlife spot where people can get opportunity. I am happy to report a few people already got opportunities to go in there and to sell their food and different things. Moving on again, you will see the Pierhead project has started. We ain't just talk it, we're doing it. I have a meeting I'm going to have a meeting soon with some of the developers, because some of these projects start and you find out about them after, but you don't cry. You're going to meet with the people and see how can you get economic opportunity, especially get in there. As my brother said, get in there. And we got to get in there so that our people can get in there. Because the end of the day is about jobs, employment, and economic opportunity for empowerment. The next one is a boardwalk project, which I have about 60%. I was so confident at this time. Basically, it's a developer that want to do some pop-up shops, again, to benefit the Nelson Street area and so on. People can come and have some nightlife in that area where the boardwalk, because we walked through there Friday, and it was a ghost town. It was a ghost town. But what we had there before was a wharf. You remember the wharf was there, and it smelled bad, and you used to try to avoid it. But now we have a waterfront property, man. Ain't a wharf no more. It's waterfront. And you turn the waterfront into what? Economic opportunity and empowerment for people. So that is what we are working towards. There's a number of market upgrades, and at first I saw these as more commercial events. But what are commercial events? Economic opportunity and empowerment for people. We're getting ready to launch the Fairchild Street, open it officially, Fairchild Street Market. There is the river stand, preparing to rebuild there, how we rebuild the Fairchild Street Market, the Cheapside expansion, and then the Temple Yard. Now I want to speak a minute about Temple Yard with all due risk. You understand? Temple Yard is a project that people spoke about for many, 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 many years. They thought Rockers Alley, and they spoke, and they spoke, and they spoke, and they spoke, right? My friend here got people over politics. I got results over rhetoric. So what we're doing now is they've started to do, they have the plans, the designs, and they're starting to do Temple Yard now. And that is what we are talking about, movement. Action, because at the end of the day, people will be empowered through having another opportunity, another option to go and shop in Bridgetown. Now, the last two I want to talk about quick on jobs, employment as I wrap up is looking at the Halls Village, Ellis Village project. You know, we're doing these block projects where people can set up the kiosks and sell. That is one I have my eyes on. And then what I want to close on the jobs, employment, economic opportunities is the World Cup Legacy Project. Not World Cup. World Cup Legacy Project. I think the word legacy should always follow cup. World Cup Legacy Project. When I hear World Cup, it's getting nervous. Everybody say everything for World Cup. No, World Cup can and it can end. And the city of Bridgetown and Barbados must continue after June 30th, right? They got something called July 1st. And I believe that that is what we should focus on, the opportunities that we can get that continue beyond World Cup. Again, that is why I think the Nelson Street Party or Street Fair, whatever they want to call it, would be good, because the whole idea is to use that particular opportunity of World Cup to create the legacy, to get it going and to keep it going. I believe another one of the legacy projects can be the same. Pelican is a fan zone during World Cup, but after World Cup, what can it be? It can be a third of these things. So I believe that that is the direction that we can take that, again, making sure that people have proper opportunity and entertainment and economic empowerment throughout the year and not every once in a while when there's a major event. One of the other legacy projects I want to say for the people of Pickwick Gap in particular is the Good Neighbors program. And at this time, I commend Shamar, who's been leading that with me with Kwame, the Kensington Oval Management Inc., in terms of making sure that there are good relations between the Oval, and the residents. Residents, you know we want activity, but the residents complain about the noise. They complain about people parking in front of their properties when they have the events, etc. The Good Neighbor program is supposed to bring back the days when Kensington will alert them when there are shows, try to make sure that promoters do their best to reduce the noise at a certain time, to point the speakers in a good direction, to ensure that residents are comfortable, to ensure that residents get a little ticket here and there too, because I want things to say they want. Yeah, a little ticket to the show, a little invitement to the entertainment. At least it will ease some of the pressure. So those are the things that have been restarted, and those are things I expect to continue beyond World Cup. And that's why we talk about the World Cup Legacy Project. Another major one is the database. What they've been doing, and Shamar been doing, is doing the walkthrough and creating a skills bank for the area, so that when Kensington Oval needs workers, needs people to employ, to give jobs to, whether temporary or permanent, they can pull from the area through the skills bank. And that is why I put that under jobs, employment, and empowerment. Now, the last one is daily living, infrastructure, and community activities, and I speak to these quickly. I know that the minister will speak to drainage, sewering, and sidewalks and grills that we've been doing through Kensington, New Road, New Orleans, and other areas. They have the care of the elderly community project that President Harvey spoke to. Now, what I like about this project is that government has said we have an aging population. The Ministry of People Empowerment is doing their utmost to ensure that we care for the elderly as much as possible. But we've always said the government cannot do it alone. We prefer community care, we prefer home care. How do we do that? And that is why I am excited and proud of the branch for launching the initiative to say, let's get our nurses within our branch, let's get our care of the elderly persons trained and volunteers in the branch to go and look after the elderly. I think it is an extremely worthwhile project, and it adds to the effort of government. That is how we should work hand in hand, resident with government, branch, community group, service clubs. The road project, I won't say a lot on that, but I know that I will allow the Deputy Prime Minister to speak to that. And all I will say is that she would explain to you what the Advanced Mill and Pave project is about, because you know some people see some roads get due and some didn't get due, and they want to know why this was due and that was not done, and she would explain best why that is done. I will tell you that I have my eyes on Mason Hall Street, Church Gap, and Browns Gap, because those are areas that when I visited have been not done, let's say not done for a very long time. And we're talking in some cases 30 years, and some never had a road. So I want to address those past atrocities, if we can call them that. Speeding along, I am happy to report that the Murphy's Pastor Canal project has restarted, where we are not looking at cleaning the canal every once in a while when it get out of hand, when bush started to grow in it, when it started to got more moss than the seaweed in the sea. The Ministry of Transport and Works, and I thank the Prime Minister, I thank the Deputy Prime Minister, and I thank the residents out there for keeping on my back too, to ensure that they've now hired 5 young men from the area to maintain it every single day, to ensure that it don't want cleaning, but that it is kept clean. Less mosquitoes, less dengue, less problems altogether. The New Orleans Community Center is progressing along. I can't wait for the say it's time to do the opening. That had been closed for very long. I am now in a little battle to ensure it becomes a community center, not a police outpost, because I believe that one of the things we try to do is to push towards not needing a police outpost, but that we can need a community center, an additional community center. So that has been started and is almost finished. Also working on the Emerton Community Center. Now, anybody know about Emerton Community Center? You all know it was closed for a very long time. A number of issues, and I believe that we are on the path of actually getting it reopened. I've spoken to the Chief Community Development Officer and the Director of the National Sports Council, and we are doing some work, which they started some assessments last week, and I believe that by the next meeting, when I report to you, I want to be reporting that it is open and it is in full swing, and tell you how many courses going on inside of it. The next time I talk to you about that, that's what I want to be talking about. The Clean and Greens, as you know, we had the Clean and Green in Kensington Lodge. We had it in, we want to have one in New Orleans, the 10th Avenue in that area. And then we recently had one open in what we call the 4 Point area. And that is there just beyond the Westbury School, right here where we are, right at the bottom of this particular gap. I call it 4 Point because that connects about 4 communities. You have Chapman Lane, New Orleans, Westbury, Pittwick Gap, and that's right in the middle of all 4. So that is why I call that the 4 Point area. right, and want to come in Baxter's Road shortly. The other thing I want to tell you all, especially the citizens and the residents of the city, if you know of any area government land that open that you feel that would do a good clean and green, let me know. Let me know. We want to know, because we will pass it on the Ministry of Environment and make sure that we at least have some green spaces in our concrete city. Or the last two things I will deal with now is the cleanup and heritage project, and this is slated for Reed Street. There's a building in Reed Street that we understand has some significant historic value, and we're working with the Heritage Committee and those to ensure how we could, take some advantage of that, where, we have a lot of people who doing tours in Bridgetown, like how they tour Rihanna Drive. We want to have some tours where people can actually be able to have their little, again, economic opportunity through selling, through doing a museum stuff, things like that. So that is on the cards as well. For what I call the lanes of Tudor Street, which is Mahogany Lane, Bedford Lane, Sobers Lane, and I go down all the other lanes, including Corey Lanes. What we want to do through there is I want to do a mural project. Art camp is coming, and those are projects. We have 2 community leaders from that community that step forward and say that they want to do these things. And then, obviously, I cannot sit down without talking about the peace movement. There's a peace movement in Barbados through the National Peace Program, but there's also a peace movement in the city as they continue to speak to a lot of the community leaders and gatekeepers in the city to make sure that we keep the peace. But there's also a peace project coming for the schools. And I'm happy to report that this school, Westbury, or at the last graduation, we rename it Westbury. We're trying to get a little more prestige, right? So instead of Westbury, we call it Westbury. So at Westbury, have been the first primary school to request a peace program in there where they want to do, the song competition, the poster competition, get people to come in and speak to the students. So that will be launching here soon under the direction of the principal here, Ms. Giddings. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, basically what I'm saying is that, again, housing and houses, jobs, economic opportunity, daily living, roads, infrastructure, the major problems that you brought to me, and what I wanted to bring to you is what we are doing and what we plan to do to address these and other issues. So don't only stay tuned, but get involved as a family to show how you can help to make Barbados and its people the best that it can be. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you, Corlin. Let's say one more time, ladies and gentlemen, for MP Corlin. Thank you, Mr. DJ. That song was intended for Mr. Corleone. It's called No One Can Stop Us Now. We're moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, I forgot earlier to mention another project that we are launching. It's called the City Community Maintenance Unit. And I'm the person heading that unit. You would have seen some fellas around the area cleaning and greening and whatnot. That is one of the projects that we also will be launching. The Community Maintenance Unit, the City Greening Unit. We're also proposing to have a city road race, not a city fun run, a city road race in May. We have reached out to Mr. Roy Clark, former Olympian, to organize the route and whatnot for us. That road race is coming in a form of fundraising for the city branch of the Barbados Labour Party. It was also made to understand that the branch will also be getting, or proposed to be getting, a stall at the Cricket World Cup. That is for the branch to raise funds. And the MP have informed me that there will be a program or a project which will be running from Pelican Village right up to Nelson Street. And again, the city branch of the Barbados Labour Party will be involved in that in terms of setting up stalls and tents and whatnot, again, to raise funds for the branch. I mentioned earlier the picnic. Yes, we are also proposing to have a a literacy program for the children of the city of Bridgetown. Those children whose parents are unable to attend them when they come home from work or probably during weekends, we'll be launching a program shortly where those children will be able to be taught about math, English, science, social studies, whatever, 11 plus. That program will be coming on stream shortly. So, as the MP say, stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Get involved. Stay tuned and get involved. Don't just stay tuned here. Stay tuned is for observers and spectators. But we's workers. We's worker bees. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure, no further ado, to introduce our first guest speaker for this evening. He needs no real introduction to tell you the truth. But as I say, he is the member for St. Michael South, SMS. He is the Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. He is where I cut my teeth in ministry. I really miss working with him in the ministry, tell you the truth. I like my work where I am, but I really miss working with him. And he's also my comrade and my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, he is your Kurt. Ladies, put your hands together for Kurt Humphrey as he addresses us at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Corey. A very good afternoon to everyone. It is a pleasure to be in the city. Good afternoon. This one is on too?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, I know it's on, but it sounds muffled. It's a pleasure to be in the city this afternoon with you all. And to just share a few thoughts. But first, let me say I also miss working with Corey. I feel Barbados got a 2-for-1 deal when Corey was in the ministry. And, you know, I'm happy that he's been elevated to the position as minister. And I want to publicly congratulate him again on that as well. I'm also very happy to see Corey because Corey wasn't well, as you all know. And that brought all of us great sadness. So I'm happy to see you in good health, my brother. It is wonderful and a pleasing thing to be in the city. I don't intend to be extremely long today, but I do want to share a few thoughts. Right, Ricky? I just want to share, thank you. I want to share a few thoughts this afternoon in relation to some of the things that we're doing in the ministry, and also to say how wonderful it is to see such an amazing crowd here this afternoon. And having to open the doors and to bring in more chairs, this is a good thing for you, Corey. But it's also a good thing for the Barbados Civil Party family. And it's a good thing for Barbados because were you to listen to the rhetoric on the other side, you would swear that the Barbados Civil Party is dying or dead. And that we couldn't get people out to our meetings. And we ram off the church service, ram off the luncheon, and no Corey ram off in here. But that is the way that we do it. But I begin this way only to offer a caution that as a family, I think we have to be very careful about what we allow ourselves to believe. A lot of things are not true, but they are repeated. And so I saw the Prime Minister yesterday in an interview, and she was saying basically that, you know, there's inflation all over the world and so on. But Barbados is not dying. Barbadians are not dying. I understand that times are hard, but times are hard all over the world. But I assure you that the best person to manage the affairs of this country is this Barbados Labour Party government, for sure. And led, of course, by Mia Motley. And you know, I am in such a pleasant and joyful mood. You know, I listen to the president. You know, they got 2 leaders out there now. But I mean the president leader. So I was listening to the president. If you listen to the president of the Democratic Labour Party, half of the things he says aren't true. And the other half is probably a lie. But if you listen to the rhetoric, you would believe Barbados is dying. And I say so because recently we had this thing about the seaweed harvester. And this seaweed harvester has cost the government $300,000. And the seaweed harvester was $140,000. Half of it, you see what I tell you, everything you say, half of it is true. Then he said that Concept Bay was $1.5 million. And Concept Bay was just over $600,000. Again, half is true. The other half is a lie. And then the biggest one is that there was this thing that was circulating widely, that we had bought these houses, these Chinese houses, and we put them down for 5 years to rot out. We bought the houses after Elsa. When Elsa was? 2021. 5 years from 2021 is what? In 2026. Oh, we in 2026. And we bought those houses in July, ordered them in July, and the houses didn't come till later on in the year. So at most, the houses are 2.5 years old. They can't be sitting down rotting for 5 years. Half. Ronnie is a half a man. Half of what he's saying is true. And the point that I am making is, well, he should really be half a man, because it seems that they're intent on making sure that he get half of the time he spend planning to be leader. And we have to be careful, because what you're seeing now is a desperate man doing desperate things, trying to pull down a whole, not the Barbados Party, but Barbados, walking around trying to make you think everything in Barbados is broken, that the entire country is broken, that the entire system is broken, not offering a single solution, but yet saying, vote me in. I have no solutions to any of these problems, but vote me in. We have to be very careful, because I'm telling you that the plan is to get him by any means necessary. And desperation is a trap, and you got to be very careful with desperate men. And when it comes to the social sector, you see, because the Democratic Labour Party used to believe, or like to believe, thank you, they like to believe that they are the party responsible for everything social. And that their record when it comes to the social sector is so above the record of the Barbados Labour Party. And so that regardless of what we do now in the next few years, they have to argue that we are not doing well. They have to. Because they've given up the argument on economics. Because the record is clear. You can look, whenever the Labour Party is in power, more people are employed, there's more economic activity, there is greater production, all those things. They gave that up. But they held on to this idea that perhaps they can be the party responsible for social development. And so what you will see are these attacks on the social sector, because they cannot give up that ghost. But if you give up the economy and you're losing on the social argument, what are you offering to the people? And so you have now to use your own considered judgment to determine whether or not the record of this Barbados Labour Party, and I don't mean the history, because the other thing they won't give up is Errol Barrow. Everything is Errol Barrow. They forget the last few leaders, but everything is Errol Barrow. But let me barely mention Tom Adams. Oh, that was so long ago. Let me mention Grant Lee. Let me mention Owen Arthur. Oh, it was so long ago. Or the things that we would have done in the first term. That was so long ago, but they want us to believe that Errol Barrow is still alive. I have no disrespect for Errol Barrow. He is an outstanding Barbadian, and I admire him a lot. But these are different times. And so this argument that the social sector under the Barbados Labour Party is doing well, or that we have implemented programs in the social sector, is one that the Democratic Labour Party cannot let pass. You understand? So when simple things are being passed, like the Child Protection Bill is really nothing to get nobody marching over. Nobody is trying to take away the rights of parents. There is more protection in the Child Protection Bill now for parents than there is in the existing law. And that's a fact. But they have to find something to argue over. And so you're going to see that time and time and time again, because they cannot give up the idea that they're losing on the social argument. And so today I want to frame my intervention around understanding social policy and understand what it is that this government is doing in relation to that. And this is very important for the city. It's very important for St. Michael South. It's very important for urban constituencies, because the vast majority of the people we interact with in the Ministry of People Empowerment are from St. Michael and wider urban Barbados. The vast majority of the people we interact with, a lot of them are from the city. And that Corey Lane calls me all the time, or WhatsApp me, or Kurt, call this body now. Kurt, call this body. Speak to this person. I feel like I work for Corey. Right? But you do what you have to do for your colleagues. And I love Corey Lane like a brother. But here is the understanding that I want you all to walk away with, because this is going to be a debate about facts. Social policy is essentially about three things: how needs are met, how problems are managed, and what opportunities for advancement you create. And I heard Corey speak a lot about opportunities. How needs are met, how problems are managed, and what opportunities for advancement you create. Basic policy. No matter what the policy is, that is essentially what you're trying to achieve. These three things: manage your social problems, make sure you meet people at their needs, and give them the opportunity to do more for themselves. And when you look at what it is that we are doing, and I want to go through, perhaps very quickly, a few of our policies. Let us start, first of all, with the elderly policy. Now, Barbados is an aging society. In fact, the front page of today's paper tells you that we are seeing more deaths than we are seeing births. There are more people dying on a daily basis than people are being born. Now, while that may not alarm you naturally, it should. Because what that tells you is that your population is shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. The other component of that situation is that as we are having less births, people are living longer. So you have people living longer, less births, and a shrinking population. So you're going to have a very small amount of young people and a significant amount of older people in the next few years. The implications for that in terms of work and production is that you are going to have a very small workforce having to support a very large non-workforce, whether it is the children on the end, because you have to support children until they're about 16, 18, until they work, and then the large amount of older persons on the other end. The conversation that Barbados should be having is not a political conversation. I want to repeat that, because whether we are the government or not, this situation is going to face Barbados. The conversation that we are having around the elderly is not and should not be framed as a political conversation. It is a conversation about the character of this country, what this country is going to look like, how we are going to be able to finance the persons who are alive in this country, what opportunities we're going to be able to offer both the young and the old, and how do we retool a whole generation of older persons to be able to participate in the new Barbados. The conversation around NAS should not be a political conversation, but it has become a political conversation. You know why it's a political conversation? When I was at the Canadian High Commission, this is before we came into office, obviously, there was a whole series of articles, Google it if you don't believe me, talking about the state of the Barbadian NAS, and that Barbados could not continue on this trajectory. This is 2013, 2014, 2015. Who was the government in 2013, 2014, and 2015? It wasn't the Barbados Labour Party. We did not come into office and say, that is the Dems. We came into office and do what the Barbados Labour Party DNA tells us to do, to face it and to fix it. Therefore, when we have this conversation around NAS, we are talking about, remember what I began by telling you, smaller workforce, larger amount of people to support. It is going to be difficult without making the adjustments to be able to push Barbados forward. Of course, I believe we have to continue to talk to Barbadians because I think genuinely that perhaps they do not understand. I don't think anybody is opposing it. I think they just don't understand, and therefore we have to be able to walk people through this conversation. But I want, when you're having this conversation, to do so with the facts. And if you don't want to remember the statistics, simply remember smaller working population, larger non-working population, a greater amount of people to support. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister of Barbados. So at the end of the day, therefore, we cannot keep doing what it is that we were doing. That is the first thing. So the policy that we have is meant to respond to this aging phenomena. Now, I wrote, when I was a younger man, about 20-something years ago, my dissertation on aging in Barbados. This is nothing that I stumbled upon. 24 years ago, I wrote that Barbados is facing what I call then an aging time bomb. No, in my mind, we did not do enough to deal with the aging time bomb, and now we're going to face it. So now we have a policy in Barbados for the first time that is so comprehensive. Hi, Brady. Show Brady some love. We have an aging population, ladies and gentlemen. I ain't saying so because Brady just walked in. Before you walk in, Dylan, honestly. But we have an aging population, and we have to find new ways to address it. The other thing is that as our population ages, it is not to say that everybody now past 60 can't work, or everybody past 60 unhealthy. Ain't none of those things. We just have to find a new way to deal with it. So I find it a little bit, in my mind, unfortunate that this has become also a political conversation. Because whether we are the government or not, whether we are in place or not, Barbados is still an aged society. The average the percentage of Barbadians now over 60 is 19.1 or 19.2%. That makes Barbados a very aged society. A society is considered to be a super aged society at 21%. By the net census, in 10 years, Barbados will be a super aged society. Do not let anybody tell you that this is not a conversation that we have to have. The other thing is there is no legitimacy in my mind on from the Democratic Labour Party on this matter. Where is the legislation that they are telling me that we need to bring? Now, I know that we have just concluded drafting instructions and that Barbados will have legislation for the first time to protect older people under this Barbados Labour Party. I also know that this Barbados Labour Party brought on 420 elder care workers to address that situation. I also know that this Barbados Labour Party just put $7 million in the estimates to build additional facilities for older persons. Our record when it comes to dealing with aging is stellar. I don't feel no pressure, but I want you all to understand that when you're hearing the rhetoric, it is just talk. So then I heard the other leader said at one point that you have to look at the money that is being spent in the social sector. Look at the money. Ministry deserve more money. I mean, I'm grateful for the money because we could always do with more money. But if you look at older persons, when on average the DEMs were in, the National Assistance Board, $8 million, $9 million. We just gave $19 million to the National Assistance Board. And then topped it up with the $7 million. So comparing $26 million to help older persons with 9, it's chalk and cheese. So when you look at it in terms of the financial support, when you look at it in relation to the fact that we have a policy, because, you know, you could plan and don't act. They say if you plan and you don't act, they say that is a daydream. But if you act and you don't plan, that is a nightmare. So you just running about the place trying to think. So right now we have a Democratic Labour Party running about the place trying to think. But the facts are clear. Down the middle. More money spent on the elderly, the most comprehensive plan for the elderly, legislation coming to support the elderly, workers employed to protect the elderly, and even with all of that, it is not enough. And I heard Minister Lane make the point that we have to, and I applaud your branch for the work that you're going to be doing with the nurses and coming together to help the older persons in your constituency. That is phenomenal. And Barbados needs more of that, and I congratulate the city branch for that amazing thing. But we need more of that, because even with all that I have said that the government has done, it is not going to be enough. Because the rate at which, and the Deputy Prime Minister would tell you that when we were having a conversation in Cabinet just last Thursday, we discussed this at length. It was probably the longest paper we spent time on, because we're serious about this thing. And I do not want this idea that we must protect older persons to be lost in political nonsense. When we look at all of this, it is still not enough, because the rate at which we are aging is just too significant, too fast. We're aging almost at an exponential rate. And it will mean that people will not have to find a way to care for older persons in communities. I know the DPM is always saying we got to find a way to loosen up so that a woman could have, or a man could have 3 or 4 older persons and take care of them during the day to help. They used to do it in the old days, you know. Now a lot of things have changed. You can't do it. If you try to do it, you got to get health certificate, police certificate, fire thing, it's training. It's a little bit more difficult now. But we have to find a way to be able to do it at the community level. And I know that it is hard on family members, but you also have to find a way for family members to be able to help their persons, if you can. I know it's not always possible, and I'm not blaming anybody. I did not come here for a political conversation or to blame Barbadians for anything, but if you can, give a little bit more effort. I say so. I look at two of my colleagues now, Ricky McConney over there, and my campaign manager normally, Mark, sitting there, both of whom are dealing with elder parents, and I know Santi as well. But both of them dealing, two young men who put in a lot of work to look after their older family. If you can, give a little more. And I say so. Last week we met with the National Assistance Board workers. I don't know if any of them are in here. I saw one earlier. We met with the elder care workers. You see, they give me a lot of love. You see, so I got to shake back. We met with the elder care workers and the home health workers. And the stories, I said to them, perhaps we got to put this thing on camera. Not from me, because if I say it, somebody can fly online and curse me. But standard. That's bare fake account, so bare one follower open yesterday. Anyways, they're going to curse me. I don't mind that. But if you listen to the stories that they would tell you, and I told it in cabinet, that they would go to a house on a Tuesday. If they have many houses, they may only get to go to that house once a week. Clean the older person on a Tuesday. Put them in the pull-up or whatever. Go back the following Tuesday in a house where young people live, children live, other people live. And the older persons are in the exact same pull-up that they put on a week ago. Ask them if you don't believe me. Because once the government gets involved, people take their hands off. It's a use know the government problem. And then we'll go and say what the government doing or ain't doing. This is not always the case, but the amount of people who told me stories like that tells me that these are not anomalies, that this is now par the course. That older people in Barbados, not only the ones that are obviously being abused, but in families, there's a great level of neglect in Barbadian households for older persons, and it has to change. And that is why we're going to bring the legislation. But I feel beyond the legislation, like maybe I can talk about this thing till I dead. Because if we do not do something about this, of all the things that I deal with, and I deal with a lot, of all the things I deal with, this is probably now the one that keeps me up most at night. Because all of us in this room, in the next few years, most of us over 40. Some of us a little bit older than 40. Some of us slightly under 40. But in the next 15, 20 years, those of us who are 40 are 60. Those of us who are 50 are 70. I hope Kelman listening, because I know this mask may be troubling. Those of us who are 50 will be 70 in 20 years. All I'm saying is that it is inevitable that we're going to have to confront this thing one way or the other. And the rate at which we have, the response that we've done is amazing, but even with the officers, we now have one person doing 9 families. Hey, it's not enough. A one person at most should be doing 4 families. So when you're doing 1 to 9, you know that, and that is with the 420 additional workers. And that is recognizing that we did not do all of Barbados. So when we add the amount of older people who also need to be added, then we're talking about 1 to 15, 1 to 20. We need to find a way for families to step up, whether it means that we offer some support to families where necessary. And the other tragedy is this. I want to speak about, Corey asked me to talk about the One Family program as well, but the other tragedy is this. When that older person is sick, when that person is in the hospital, oftentimes nobody comes to look for them. When the person is in the house, very few people come to bring them food, to bring them water. You can never find a family member. It's very difficult, you ask around, they don't know. I see somebody come in every now and then, but I don't know. Let that older person be the owner of the house and pass away. Then a whole mob of ton of people show up to claim the body. Because they think in Barbados, if you claim the body or bury that gives you some inroad. To claim the body, to then get the person's assets. And I am not scolding Barbadians because it's probably not the vast majority, but it is some. And it is a significant sum. And I would ask the elder care workers and the home helpers, I told them, put these people on camera. And let them tell the stories that they have now reported is happening in these places every day. They would tell you people put in wheelchairs and the wheelchair lock. And when they come back, the wheelchair is still locked in the same place, meaning that the person they move once. This ain't requiring a legislation. Well, maybe to deal with them when they're doing it, but it just requires care. And I keep saying Barbados now seems to have a crisis of care. And it is not the Barbadian way. We grew up, if you ain't had a food, a man would give you something to eat. You know what I mean? You walk. I remember one day, Barbados was different. You know, my mother and a woman had a cuss out a Sunday. As she hear me now, my mother's a big Christian. It was a Sunday morning, cuss out, thing. I would say because this is streaming, my mother wasn't cursing. The other woman was cursing. But they had this little feud. And, you know, this woman I love very much, she's now passed, Miss Marshall, who used to live in my Blackbird with her. She's now passed. I loved her very much. But they had this little thing. In the morning, I'm leaving home now, and my school clothes, I look neat. Okay, you can't let me mother house if you look neat. You can home how you want, but same people know. When you left, you go look good. And I passed Miss Marshall, and I said, "Good morning, Miss Marshall." I was 9. My voice still in big, so you can imagine 9. "Good morning, Miss Marshall." And I continued down the road. My mother, who and this woman had cussed so bad, the woman cussed on the Sunday. My mother looked out and she said, "Miss Marshall, he just speak to you." I said, "Jesus, Lord, have mercy. It is a good thing I spoke to Miss Marshall." Because the Barbados that we grew up in, you can't get in big people things. And my mother looked at you and said, "Miss Marshall," said, yes, he speak, Merle. And I was allowed to go along my way, but I know my mother, if I hadn't spoken, come back home and his hand. So at the end of the day, our society has changed. Some things are good and some things are not so good. But I am appealing to you all now, honestly. We have to do more for the older population in Barbados. We will build the facilities, we will train up more people, but it cannot be that the government alone is going to do it. And I mean that whether we are the government or whether we in the government, because we ain't going to be the government forever. At this rate, perhaps, hopefully, anyway. But we ain't going to be the government forever. And whoever comes in will still have to deal with it. So beyond politics, you know, you also heard some of them saying, you know, we will not meet. We will not have meetings with the Labour Party. We will not attend meetings on these things. But why? I mean, why? How could you be so irresponsible that you would choose to separate yourself from the governance processes just to give yourself the liberty to criticize? It makes no sense. On disabilities, very quickly, because the DPM is here and I don't want to keep her waiting. On disabilities, very quickly, we now have, again, a policy. Comprehensive. We put in place the Edmund Hickson Commission, which has a better name than that, but that's what we call it. It's the commission to establish the committee, something. But it's a very comprehensive report that detailed all of the situations facing people with disabilities. I call it the Hickson Report. We just laid it, we approved it to be laid in Parliament. That should be mandatory reading for every Barbadian. Because what we did was that we had about 80 meetings across Barbados, stakeholders, the public, and allowed the persons with disabilities to speak to Barbados. Corey was at probably more meetings than me. If you hear the stories of persons with disabilities in Barbados, the way, again, that they are treated in this country, and don't tell me it's the government, because half the time ain't no government present. We used to hide people with disabilities back in the day. You know, I had a friend, he had a family member with a disability. I did not know. I mean, I was a grown man, and I did not know. He never spoke of him. Mother never brought him outside, not even to the window. That has changed, and now we're seeing persons with disabilities coming forward a lot more. We have to do more for persons with disabilities, too. They talked to me about education. They talked about health. They talked about my ministry, the social sector, and the better support for them. They talked about just general inclusiveness. They've asked us for transportation. I mean, the whole gamut. And we have listened to them, and gradually we will respond. But mark this, and this is as true as John 3:16. The disabled community in Barbados have reached out to us as a government and have said thank you, particularly to the Prime Minister for the last budget, for doing that which they have been asking for nearly 30 decades, to allow them to get financing, because many people saw it, talked about it, and did not do it. I am a fortunate minister because I believe the Prime Minister understands what we have to do for persons with disabilities, and also because the other minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, also understands what we have to do for persons with disabilities. That legislation is now in draft. I have it. We're going to fine-tune it, and I know for sure by summer we're going to be debating that particular legislation to protect persons with disabilities in Barbados. So that is elderly, and that is persons with disabilities. I will hint at children. I'm not going to get into that today, but hopefully in May, the leader of government business could say that hopefully by May we've laid a report. Hopefully by May, at some point in time, during the month of May, which is Child Month, we will discuss, debate, and pass the child protection legislation, because the children of this country need protection, and this is what this government intends to do. So then lastly, on the One Family program, and Corey asked me to talk about that because really and truly that's Corey's program. He said, come here, you come to the city, you gotta let him know the program. So this is Corey's program. Actually, it was called the 1,000 Family Program. And Corey called me one day, and he said, you know, I would say minister, but he didn't say Mr. Kirk. He said, Kirk, we should call this program the One Family Program, not the 1,000 Family, because all of we in this together as one family. So the name of the program actually came from Corey Lane. So I give Corey a round of applause because I love the name. So we named it the One Family Program, and the program essentially seeks to empower 1,000 of the most vulnerable families. As much as I try my hardest to keep this social thing out of politics, you know I can't get it keep out at all. I had to now suffer through a program to hear the Democratic Labour Party say, well, this is our program. We made this. This is our thing. Now, government is a continuum. If you come in and you find something that makes sense, you don't cut it unless you're stupid and you're trying to hurt people. Because government is a continuum, you press on something that makes sense. But the reality is, you want to hear the truth? It was not their program. The program that the Democratic Labour Party is referring to was a program of the IDB that was started under when they were in, with 250 persons, called the IC Bridge program. IC means ISEE, Identification, Stabilization, Enablement, and Empowerment. That's the name of the program. That program, Dr. Lowe, when he came, I was then Director of Social Policy. So I'm telling you what I know. And the records will reflect that what I am saying is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. So when Dr. Lowe came to the ministry, and I must tell you, I worked with Dr. Lowe, I worked with Chris Sinclair, and I worked with Steve Blackett. And I enjoyed working with the three of them for different reasons. So you know that I ain't coming now to be political. This is the truth. When we started the IC Bridge program, in the room that we had sat in upstairs in the ministry that I now lead, Dr. Lowe, who was then minister, had asked, what programs do you now have in place? Because he also understood that government was a continuum, that we could continue to build out on and to get early wins apart from the constituency councils. There was a program that we had framed on the Chilean Puente model. Ms. Haynes at the time was the director of the Poverty Bureau. That program meant to give persons and families the best of Barbadian social services. It was a small program. Puente essentially is an education program, but Dr. Haynes and her wisdom, Ms. Haynes and her wisdom said can't just do education like you know. You gotta make sure people got access to training. You gotta make sure people get health care. So the framing of the tenets of the program was in the poverty eradication program that Owen Arthur had started and Hamilton Lashley had led. When Dr. Lowe came in, he said that in his psychology training, there is this IC, identification, stabilization, enable, and he broke it down and, in my opinion, added value to the program. But the genesis of the program was not the Dems. And not that I care, because really and truly, it don't matter if it's a BLP or a DLP program, it got to help people. We have to help people. But so desperate is this lot to hold on to the idea that they're the saviors of people and that all that is good in the social sector must be for the Democratic Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party alone. That they would go and perverse the facts. So this program started with us. Dr. Lowe added value, and it went to 250. We came in, the tenets of the program made sense. We took it from 250, corrected the flaws, and added 750 more. It is now 1,000 people of the most desperate people, most vulnerable people in Barbados receiving help. And when you go to talk to a person, unless it's close to elections, most people in KF use a B or a D. And this political divide would only come back to hurt this country in issues relating to this ministry. So the 1,000 persons on the program, I don't know how to vote. I don't care how to vote. At the end of the day, we have to put in place systems to be able to empower persons in Barbados. That 1,000 family program, now renamed One Family by Corey Lane, that One Family program offers, in my mind, the best opportunity for people to be able to graduate from their circumstances. I told you, social policy is essentially about three things: managing your problems, meeting your needs, and creating opportunities for advancement. This program does all three. And so that essentially what we will be doing at the end of it is making sure people are trained up. They have opportunities to go to training, to get education. If they have access health problems, take them and prioritize them in the healthcare sector. When a few of them need also assistance with housing, I've told the Minister of Housing repeatedly, my people got to make sure to get them houses first, because we're talking about people across Barbados. As a matter of fact, if you look at the list, because people might say, oh, it's a political thing. If you look at the list, perhaps the smallest amount of people on this program from St. Michael South, and that is a true thing, because they didn't care about the politics. What they did is that they did the weighing, like you weigh and rank. So based on the weights, and there's a criteria. Based on the weights, then they determine who got on the program. And once you're on the program, then you get access to these things to make sure that poor people in this country could live. So we are doing the aging policy and the law. And I'm closing. We're doing the disability policy and the law. We're doing the same for children, also the policy and the law. Correcting laws where in Barbados there are no laws, particularly for the elderly now. This government is doing it. None for persons with disabilities. This government is doing it. The legislation governing children is 120 years old. The current legislation, we are correcting it. We're fixing the institutions through the amalgamation. I want to talk about that today. And we're also doing the One Family program. So when you look at what we're doing in the social services sector, it is the most comprehensive response to addressing poverty and creating opportunity. And I say to you without fear of contradiction that in this particular space, you can be extremely proud of your government. You can be extremely proud of your cabinet. And while they continue to go around and bring down the name of Barbados and the person who leads it, you can be extremely proud of your country. And you can be extremely proud of your Prime Minister. And I close on that. Thank you very much for listening to me. And we will talk again on another day. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Humphrey. You have heard it from Mr. Humphrey yourself. Let's have another round of applause, please. And as I said earlier, ladies and gentlemen, in the city of Bridgetown, we're sticking with Corey. Is that true? Isn't that true? Isn't that true? I want to bring to you our next speaker. She is no stranger, I assume, to the city. She would have graced the city before. She is our Deputy Prime Minister of Barbados, a Minister of Transport Works and Water Resources. I happen to have the opportunity to work in her ministry as community auditor for the city of Bridgetown. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Santia Branshaw.
A pleasant good evening to the city of Bridgetown, and certainly to those who are listening online. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank the branch, to thank my colleague, MP Corey Lane, and to say that I know that he's following in the footsteps of a number of other trailblazers in representing this constituency. I also want to thank my other colleague. He's called me Santia, so I think I can call him Kirk. And we go way back. He is a product of the pain and one that we are very proud of because of all that he has done for this country and continues to do for the community of St. Michael Southeast as well. And certainly in his role as a representative in his own capacity, again, doing an excellent job. I come this evening, though, on the heels of a lot of what Kurt has said, to endorse a lot of what he has said, and also Corey, in terms of highlighting a lot of the work, yes, that the Barbados Labour Party government has been doing. But I feel this evening also has to be about a conversation with you, the people, a conversation about some of the questions that I hear daily from people all over Barbados, in terms of not only what the government is doing, but really how it is impacting each and every single one of you. So I am not coming this evening just to talk about roads. Let me just put you on notice here. I'm not here to talk about Murphy pasture and drainage alone, but really to talk, and I'm not here to talk about what is going to be happening after they emerge from the meeting this evening in George Street, because that is a whole hot mess. So I'm going to stay focused on my conversation with the people, because God only knows what the headline will be tomorrow morning. So I want to talk about the things that I feel are troubling Barbadians. And we are really living in a very serious time. You know, I think it's Admiral Tibbet that sings the song, "We are living in a serious time." Well, that's how I'm beginning to feel. When I was growing up, you know, my grandmother was a very Christian woman, used to send me off to Sunday school and Saturday Bible school. So I do have a little bit of the foundation in me. I know right from wrong, let's put it that way. I may not be in church every Sunday, but I do have that foundation, which I think is very important. And I remember, you know, coming up and hearing her speak about, you know, the Bible would speak about rumors of war, and also about wars. And the only wars that I understood then was like the First and the Second World War. I never thought in my lifetime that I would actually be living through a war. I mean, I never thought I would be living through a pandemic either. But I didn't think that in terms of biblical prophecy, that I would actually be living in a serious time where I am actually in government, first of all. I'm part of a government that is having to deal with a lot of external factors which influence the things that we are able to do and our capacity to do things for average Barbadians. So we are in a situation where I think everybody knows there's conflict between Israel and Palestine. And it is very real in the sense that even within the city of Bridgetown and across Barbados, you have people who are connected in one way or the other to both territories. They're connected, whether by family or otherwise, to war. But the rest of us also have an indirect impact in terms of what is happening outside of Barbados. And maybe you may not realize it, because when I heard Kurt speak about the cost of living earlier, I wanted to jump in and say to him, but you got to break it down a little further. Because we complain about the cost of living without understanding that war outside of our borders is impacting on our cost of living. That regardless of whether it was the Democratic Labour Party, whether it was the other Democratic Labour Party, it really would not matter. That the fact of the matter is that any government, and any government, if you check throughout the region, throughout the international community, is complaining, the people are complaining about the cost of living. I go to the supermarket. I know many of you feel that politicians don't go and do ordinary things. But I do ordinary things, and I like doing ordinary things because I've been raised to know that politics can be temporary, and you must do the things that the people are doing if you are also to represent the people. So I go to the supermarket, like I'm sure the rest of my colleagues as well, and I can see the inflation in terms of our pricing. The reality is that as a government, while we know that we do not have the control over what is happening in the international community, we have tried our best to be able to introduce the various price controls for the various suppliers here in Barbados to ensure that we hold them to a position where they can control the prices on basic food items. Now, if you choose to have other things outside of those basic food items, then of course you may pay a little bit more. But we've tried to make sure, given that we understand all of the issues we're dealing with in terms of the elderly population, people have to send their children to school, that we're able to hold certain prices at a level that, while it may still be a little pricey for some, that at least you are not getting the price that it perhaps ought to be. So we are trying to shield the Barbadian population from what is happening in terms of the supply chain externally. I remember when I was in Miami undergoing treatment, and as I was getting better, I would take my own trips to the supermarket and stuff. And I remember packaging up things and bringing them home for various people in the community. And as I go back and forth to the United States, I encounter increases in prices in the very things that I might pick up in Walmart, you know, and other locations to be able to bring back here. So for those who travel, there's a reality that the prices, even in the international community, have increased. There's also another reality, which is that, and again, most of you who may experience going outside of the borders will appreciate this. Sometimes when you go to stores now in America, in Europe, you cannot pick up things off of the shelf. Because they tell you, well, we don't have the things in stock because of supply chain issues. You have to order the things online, and it can take a couple weeks or so to be able to get the items. In other words, for the most part, a lot of the things that we have become accustomed to being able to go and we can get different sizes of whatever we want, they are now not as available to us as they once were. We also have the situation where the suppliers who are bringing in products into the country, they're also facing challenges in terms of the scarcity of goods, because if I am being occupied in Israel and Palestine having to deal with the issues of war, my first priority is not to make sure that Bajans down here get the things that they want manufactured. So you're also finding that even fridges, stoves, different things that, again, you would see a difference in terms of new things on the market. You're not seeing that as readily as you would previously, as you would have seen it previously. You also find that the suppliers have challenges as well in relation to filling containers. Because as you know, during COVID, we had the challenges in terms of the pandemic, getting the things to Barbados. Again, that created difficulties. You had to take what you could get, which meant that whatever you took, whether you filled the container or not, the price when you get it to Barbados, it may not be all the things that the Bajans would want, but whatever is in that container, you got to sell. And it may not be the variety of the things that Barbadians are accustomed to. So I start there this evening because I feel that it is important, as Kurt said, we are not dying, but equally there is a hardship that Barbadians are experiencing when they go to the supermarkets because of not having the same, the money does not stretch, I would say, as far as it used to, because some of the things that they would want to afford have gone up. Now it means that as a government, we have had to look at various other avenues, not just tourism, in terms of being dependent on tourism to be able to generate revenue for the country. We've tried to encourage people to get more involved in agriculture, to be able to grow what they eat. And I want to take this opportunity this evening to say to you that each of you have a responsibility for what you put into your bodies. It is okay to say that, you know, when you get sick, that the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the clinics don't have this and they don't have that, and that they're short of staff, and all of those things may be true. But I want to say to you that you must also do your part to avoid having to go to the doctor. So it is a case of we have to do what we have to do, and we have already started to analyze the things that we know have to happen to transform the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the other institutions that provide care to people. But we also cannot, while we say to people we are doing this and we are spending all of these millions of dollars on the hospital and the hospital medical services, that Bajans do not have a responsibility to pick and choose what they eat. Because, you know, we don't feel that we full unless we got a plate of food piled high. Right? We ain't feel good unless the bakes got in the most sugar. We ain't boiling out all the salt fish because we want to taste it salty. We want to make sure that we taste in the salt that is in the salt fish. And we also want every now and again, and I must tell you, I got a little vice for it occasionally, which is a snow cone. I love a snow cone. It brings back memories of my good old childhood. And well, I know about the sweet bread. The sweet bread is put on a little bit on the hips, so I ain't so sure about the sweet bread. But in all seriousness, we also as a people have a responsibility to get our medical checks. There are a lot of people that I have come across since I've been diagnosed back in 2018 who are afraid to go to the doctor. They're afraid to go and get their annual checkups. They know that within their families, there are people who have had one of the chronic non-communicable diseases, and they know that they could be predisposed to having a similar illness. But yet, even though they know, they determine, man, I ain't going to get checked. I'm frightened. And I want to say to you this evening, in all seriousness, right? Sometimes you put off things, thinking that the thing gonna go away, the pain gonna go away. Now, I ain't saying run down to the doctor every time you get a little bad feel. But in all honesty, we have to do better in terms of our ability to take care of our bodies. What it is that is going in is what is going to determine how you age. As Kirk said, we have an aging population. But we have also been known as a country as being the diabetic capital of the world and the amputee capital of the world. Little Barbados. Because we want to continue to eat all the raw sugar. And we don't want to check the labels to see how much sugar content. And I ain't calling the drinks, but if y'all get a chance, go and start looking at the labels. And understand that 40% of anything in terms of sugars, or even added sugars, because you know, I don't know if y'all know, but there's sugars. And if you look on whether it's cereal, whether it's drinks, they always have sugars in some cases, and they have added sugars. Now, one never asks oneself, was the added sugars? Well, if you add sugar, was the added sugar more poison, right? So it means that while we are fixing all of the things that are broken within the medical system, we also have a responsibility to have the conversation with our people that it takes two hands to clap. That it is not just the government's responsibility to do the things that we have to do, but it is also your individual responsibility to make sure that you avoid the medical facilities as much as you can so that you don't have to endure the long waits, that you don't have to endure the shortages and the shortage of the supply chain to be able to get precious equipment to Barbados. Because that is what we are facing. Even though we are procuring equipment, there are still delays because of what I said earlier in terms of being able to get the equipment into Barbados. I don't feel that I don't practice what I preach because my father is going to be 83 on the 26th of April. And y'all saw him come in and he's seated here at the front. And Brady will tell you that I rule with an iron fist in his household because he can't eat no nonsense. He used to eat the pigtails. I can talk you out. And he liked the food piled high on the plate. More macaroni pie, the better. And all the stews and all of those things. Everything is good in moderation. So I'm not going to tell you, you must cut out every single thing. But he will tell you that he has also started to eat more fruits. And to read the labels to see that the things have in the sugars. And to understand that if he is to control his diabetes, that he has to do the things that allow him to be not able not to hear my voice echoing constantly in the morning and in the afternoon as to what he has had throughout the day. And Kurt spoke to this issue of people not caring anymore, this crisis of care, because I care about my parents. So I, in particular, because that is, and I'll just get to that because Kurt touched on it, but my father at almost 83, is like my child. So I was brought up with the biblical principles that you must honor your father and your mother, that even when you want to answer back, you think twice. So soft answers turneth away wrath, and grievous words stir up anger. Don't worry, I could preach a little bit too. Right? I understand these things, and when it comes to caring, I agree that in a way Barbadians have lost that caring touch that was associated with us. They've lost it not only in relation to the elderly, but when they see a child going astray and give him Corey Lane a little bit more work to have to do, and certainly me, the ability to say to that child or to say to that parent, the child doing foolishness though. I need to pull them back before they go and they get themselves in trouble. We tell ourselves that we can't say anything because we're afraid that the mother or the father can come and cuss me, right? So we don't want to say anything. But I can say to you this evening, my philosophy is that this is the Barbados that I want to live in. I want to live in a Barbados where I am in a position to tell people when they are going wrong. So in the same way I can come and tell you this evening that you got to pay attention to what you are putting into your bodies. You got to exercise. You got to do all of the things that are going to nurture your soul, your mind, your physical presence. You need to do all of those things. It is the same way I view our young people. That we cannot turn a blind eye as adults, as political representatives of communities, to things when we see them going wrong. Because we have a responsibility, as I was raised to believe, that when you see things going wrong, you're supposed to put up your hand and you're supposed to say what is going wrong. So my second plea to you this evening, because I know each and everybody know in this room somebody who is going wrong. They may be a parent, a young parent, who when you check how they're raising the child, may not be doing the right thing. Do not wait until the police got to come. Do not wait until they get before the juvenile court. Do not wait until the mother is holding her belly and bawling because her child has gotten shot or murdered. I beg you, reach out and at least let your voice be heard. Because I believe even if people are going to be destined to get themselves in trouble, you have a responsibility. That's what the Bible is telling us. We got a responsibility to be our brother's keeper. Where all of these people go to church, but these biblical sayings, they must come to mean something again for Barbadians. You do not have to go to church to understand and to believe in these things. But it is about having a moral compass of right and wrong, where we are able to say as a society, this is not the way that we want to see our society performing. So I give you those two things that I want you to take away, that if you remember nothing else I say or nothing else said here this evening, deal with your health before it becomes too late. When I was diagnosed in 2018, there were many other people who were diagnosed alongside with me. And I stand here today to tell you that there are many others who didn't make the journey. They didn't make the journey because they got diagnosed too late. There are many who come to me today because I have become the social worker, Kurt, that you may be looking for in your ministry, where people reach out when they have diagnoses of anything. It doesn't have to be cancer, because they understand that I can relate to the sickness, I can relate to the things, the interventions that are needed. And I say to you this evening that a lot of the cases that are coming up, whether cancers or diabetes or other things, are as a result of people finding out the stage that they're at too late. And if you find it out too late, it means that you're not able to take corrective action. So just as we came to office in 2018, and we found this whole economy in a total mess, and we had to pause and we had to take corrective action. We had to get a good team of economists. And we had to put together, well, the cabinet became a war cabinet, essentially. And still is, as Kurt says, it still is a war cabinet. Because there are still fires that we continue to out. And I say to you that if we have had to do it at the level of the cabinet, at the level of the government, the people as well have to live their lives where instead of waiting until there is a crisis to then take action, that you too must take the example of the things that we have also done to apply it to your daily lives. I am tired hearing about stage 4 cancer when it is almost now too late for people to be able to get the interventions that are necessary. I have made the case for the linear accelerator for the persons who have to go through radiation, because for decades we've been talking about it and we have not been able to put the resources to make sure that people who go through chemotherapy are equally able to continue their course of treatment to have the radiation. You know what it is like being told that you can't get the radiation after you've had chemotherapy? You know the uncertainty that people experience when they have any kind of diagnosis. But you know, when people hear cancer, they hear the C word, they believe that everybody got dead. Well, I feel like doing too bad, because I have adhered to the things, the principles of paying attention, dealing with things early, being able to keep a positive mind, being able to speak openly about what is happening, because that is the other thing. Bajans don't want to say what is going on with them. And, you know, I recall a few weeks ago, this young man spoke out about some personal challenges that he was having. And I want to applaud you, Corey, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot for us to come out as politicians and to say when we don't feel good or when we are going through our challenges. People will never understand the bravery that takes, because everybody treats you sometimes as though you don't have the same illnesses, you don't have the same concerns as all of the rest of you. You know, I speak often about my father, but I'm going to share something with you as well, because it follows on from what Kurt has said this evening. My mother was the fittest, hottest looking chick that Brady ever had. Worked for many years, worked in Brady's Bar. Many of you would know my mother, Shirley. But my mother, when I was going through my treatment, started to experience dementia, and then it went to Alzheimer's. So while, again, many of you will say, you know, you all look at all of us and you say, we are the politicians, we're making all the money, we're doing all of these things. We experience the same thing that your team is experiencing in terms of our own parents at times, where we have to find that balance between the work, the country, all of the calls from the constituents, and our own personal lives. Now, I had to make a decision, and I shared this because it must not only be my experience in terms of what I have been through and that I put it on a shelf, and I thank God that all of y'all prayed for me and I'm here today. I believe that God has kept me here and brought me through this to also not just be a politician, but to come and talk to you as well about some realities, because I cannot have come through what I did by the grace of God and not be in a position to share with you some of the things that have gotten me through. And this is not hardcore politics this evening. This is me talking to you in the hope that you take away something that will help you to be able to intervene in your own life or in the lives of others to be able to make Barbados better, while all the rest of us are working hard to keep this country afloat. I had to make a decision as Dad was aging and Mom was going through her battle. My sister was overseas. I coming back from Miami, having gone through the treatment for a year. How do I recover if I have to care for my mother, who doesn't know where she's left her keys, who can't then drive a vehicle, who cannot do basic things that she was accustomed to doing? And for those who know her, Kurt knows her well. He tried to gain the house in the family. When we were young, of course. When we were young. Just saying. He did. And my mother loved him dearly, I must say. But in all seriousness, right? We have to understand that even as I was going through what I was going through and trying to recover, because I believe you can't look after anybody else unless you yourself are in a position to look after yourself. And so I had to make, it was the hardest decision of my life. I don't think anything else could compare. Where I made a decision with my sister and dad, of course, at the time, that my care had to come first because he still got all his faculties. Dila Bradshaw got more memory than most young people, okay? So it was a case of how do I preserve him while at the same time knowing that I had to treat to a condition called Alzheimer's, which I have no control over. No money I could ever earn could ever change the hands of time in terms of mom's care. And I had to make that decision that I would place her in a nursing home so that she would have that round-the-clock care. Now, I share that with you because I want you to understand that within our cabinet, and as Kurt said, we have very robust discussions about elderly care and about welfare issues and about housing in cabinet because many of us have been impacted by these same issues that many of you you have as well. And the reality is that we understand how difficult it is to care for our loved ones. We understand, as Kurt said, you have to make choices sometimes as it relates to whether you are able to continue working because, again, you might not be making enough or your boss might not be reasonable to allow you to be able to care for your loved one. And we have been talking and we've been working through how do we support families and individuals who want to provide that care to their elderly persons, while at the same time not taking away those responsibilities that people must have for caring for their relatives. And that is really the conundrum that we face because we appreciate that it's a thin line that we walk at times, you know? How do we provide the assistance, but at the same time you don't want people to just figure the state is doing everything and you walk away? And again, I say to you this evening, I want you to leave here thinking about these things because these are very serious times that we are living in. This aging population that we talk about, it is very real, you know. I have units in the Pine where when I was a child, you know, the way they built them, they have like, especially down Princess Royal, they have these long steps for elderly people to go up. But when I visit now as a big hardback woman, and I go to the houses, I see the little old man and the little old woman bent over, coming to the door, trying to traverse the steps in the constituency. In many cases, they're too suffering with the dementia, so they're struggling to get the door open. Sometimes nobody is in the house with them. These are our realities. And as a government, again, you have to be able to have the financial resources to be able to, in a sense, fill all of these gaps. So while we're trying to fill the gaps, the appeal must be still to the population to care about our elderly sufficiently. That not only do we put things in place to be able to look after them, but also that we are in a position to be able to work with the state when those opportunities come up. Kirk knows my view on a few things, and I will share with you, because I hope that at some point, as a government, we are able to introduce these things. I believe that as long as we can, we need to keep people in place. And when I say in place, people don't like to leave the house and go nowhere. Their faculties would have to have gone before they take a decision that they are willingly going to leave their house and they're going to go somewhere else. Some people come to the acceptance that, you know what, my children have gone, they're living their lives, and now I may need to have care somewhere, whether geriatric or private care. There are some people who make those decisions early on. There are other people who will not make those decisions and will not want to leave the household. My view is that while we work on the facilities that we're going to build out, while we encourage people to be able to have accommodation built out for persons to be in private facilities where people can go, while we build out the geriatric hospital, the reality is everybody can't get down there. So there can still be a couple people who will not be able to enjoy the services of the geriatric hospital when it is built out. But we also have to look at how do we retrofit some of these houses. How do we make sure that bathrooms, basic things like bathrooms, have the grip bars, that we have the proper disabled toilets where persons can actually, there's a little higher. And I know this thing taller because I looked after my grandmother till before she died. The seats and stuff, the toilet seats, to be able to make sure that they're sitting here as opposed to sitting down here. This is the reality. This is what old people need. We also have to look at things like the Pampers, the adult Pampers. Or old people go through these things where they do not want to be wearing a pamper because it reminds them of going back to when they were a child. There's a certain pride and embarrassment that some people have. But the reality is Pampers are expensive, are very, very expensive. And the scenarios that Kirk described to us in terms of some of the challenges, and I don't think it is all cases, but I think that there are concerns in terms of how people are treating to their elderly. And it is things that must concern us. And I'm glad that he is working on the legislation, that we've been able to get that through. And that will come within the coming months. Because we are serious as a government about making sure that we can close those gaps. But it also requires of you to eat the right foods, to do the exercise, to take the trips to the doctor, to make sure that you get your medical checks as well early. And it also requires a thinking now of Barbadians that they start to plan for aging. Because many people do not want, I remember as an attorney, there were people who were frightened as hell for writing a will. Because they feel that somebody can try to kill them, that the children want to take away everything. So when you bring them to the office to get the will done up, the talking soft, you know, you can see, they don't want to tell you everything they have. Or then they will say, ma'am, I could talk to you privately. When the children left the room, listen, she worthless as hell, yeah, she don't do this and she don't do that at home, but she tried to get me to sign this document. But equally, it means that Barbadians, because we recognize that aging is inevitable, aging is like death. The two things you can't avoid in life is aging and death. So you got to prepare for both of them. You got to prepare that as you get older, some of your faculties are going to be lost. You have to prepare as well that someday you're going to meet your master. Them are the two things. Everything else is temporary. So we must never get too comfortable with all of the niceties and the trappings of anything, whether office, high office, or otherwise. We must live as though every day is our last, but we must also live to be able to impact as well. So, I stopped there on that. You asked me to talk about roads. Well, I have done about... Another motion to expel Ralph Thorne from the party. Anyhow, I will not be distracted by these things. I told y'all I did not come here to talk about the Democratic Labour Party. The headlines tomorrow will tell you all that has happened. And mark my word, the infighting continues. But while they are fighting, the team of the Barbados Labour Party has a responsibility. We got time with all of that, who they want to be leader and how many people want to be leader and who they want to expel. We have a government to run. And that is what we're going to be doing. We have a people to save. We have a country to transform. We have improvements to make across all sectors in a way that no other government has had to do what this administration has been tasked with doing. And believe me, there are times when, you know, we all have our frustrations of the process and how long the process takes. We do. We share those concerns. But deep down, we try to overcome those obstacles and to work with people because we understand there was a whole decade where nobody was driving anything, where you couldn't get no roads done. Because as the former Prime Minister said, potholes were transient inconveniences. So I will talk about roads for a minute because City of Bridgetown has been the beneficiary of quite a few roads, much to the dismay, I think, of some of my other colleagues. But I have tried my best as minister to level the playing field in terms of, in some cases, neglect of some of the communities across the country, looking at the types of roads that, in a sense, will impact Barbadians of all walks of life all across Barbados. So Corey said to me, one of the biggest questions that he gets asked is, why this road and not that road? Because people will see a road being done and they will make an assumption under the recent accelerated mill and pave program that Corey don't like them or that Kirk don't like them because a particular road in his constituency didn't get done. So I want this evening to just reiterate a few things in terms of the recent program that we had and to explain to you not only why we have done it, but also what we intend to do going forward. Now, there's no mystery that my phone has stopped ringing as it used to, and my messages have stopped coming through with the volume of potholes that people wanted patched. And it is because the Prime Minister graciously gave me $30 million at the beginning of the year to be able to do roads and to do them in a period of the year when it was dry season. Okay? So for those who say, well, why should we wait till January to give you money when I didn't know that we was getting the money? Well, no, we didn't know we were getting it. But all along, I had been making the case that the weather was impacting on our ability to be able to complete not just the bridge program, but also to be able to start a lot of the roadworks programs. We would start, we would stop, and of course that comes with its own frustration to residents living in communities. You got the dust, you got the issues of having to reroute and to take different roads, and we said this $30 million now is available for us to be able to identify roads across the entire country. So all 30 constituencies have been touched. All 30. All 30. We started from the north of the island, and we've gone to the south, to the east, and to the west, to the center, and we dig up and we mill and pave the roads, and we have better road conditions and better services. All of the MPs, all of the depots were able to weigh into the list of the roads that were of greatest concern. And of course, I go through my social media posts, so I thank any of you who have written to me directly and said you all want a particular road done or you did a video, because we have tried to put them into a prioritization list so that we can work through the roads that will have perhaps the most impact in terms of the most users, but while at the same time being able to put other roads into other programs to have those done. Accelerated mill and pave of 30 million was intended to deal with roads which were easy. Roads that did not require the utilities to have to come in, to have to be able to tell us that they had to now lay MPC pipes or that they had to do mains replacement. So there were these straightforward roads across the country that you could get in quickly and you could get out quickly. Now that is not to say that we did not encounter some problems. And I had to tell a reporter a few weeks ago my concern that of the almost close to 70 roads that we did so far under this program, they chose one road in the north of the island in Crab Hill that had some issues in terms of bulging as a result of compaction, and promoted that road as though the whole program got bad roads and roads with defects. Very unfortunate. And I understand people have to sell papers, but I want to make it clear that this program has impacted this country in a way that people can feel it in their pocket. Because I get all of the claims from the public in relation to all of the damage to the vehicles, all the compensation claims, and I appreciate and I understand that this has made a significant impact on the lives of people across the country. I regret it couldn't happen sooner, but again, with climate change, we have been impacted significantly in terms of the works program of MTW as well. Now, there's still work remaining because there is still on Highway 7, many of you who travel on Highway 7 would realize that we've done from Oistins and we've come we've come halfway down by Rendezvous. And then we have left out other part of the road because there's construction going on there. But the intention is to continue the works along Bay Street as well. Now, in order to do Bay Street is a little bit more complicated because, again, sometimes I don't think the public appreciates that every road is not the same. And in order to do that section of the road, we're going to have to repair a number of the culverts in order to be able to allow the milling and the paving to take place. But I, like you, want to see the completion of that phase because while this is works that are, in a sense, temporary, we are actually in the process of designing Highway 7 completely to be able to redo the road with all the sidewalks and the drainage and everything that is necessary. But I feel that Barbadians can no longer suffer the indignity of having to drive along the South Coast in particular with the conditions that are there. So there are some who will say, "Man, you're wasting money." No, we're not wasting money. We should have done it a long time ago, and we are doing it now. But we are also, while we are doing that, making sure that we are designing and preparing to build a road that is better constructed, that will also take into account the South Coast sewage treatment plant as well and the works that are going to happen on the South Coast. So yes, we are digging up now, but we're going to have to dig it back up again in order when we are ready with that phase of the South Coast works to be able to relay the road properly. So that will give MP Lane some relief, and certainly the people of his constituency as well, in addition to ordinary Barbadians. But we didn't just stop there. We also looked at the fact that there are what we call the accommodation works. There are a few wells that have to be dug because we don't want to do the nice roads and then we hear we got flooding, okay? So what the consultants have done that are on the project is they have identified a number of the additional works that are required to be done along those roads. Not every road will get a sidewalk. Not every road will you see curb and slipper. But the reality is where those things are necessary, drainage and those types of things, we will ensure that we go back now. And a lot of the small contractors will have the opportunity to be able to bid for those works, to be able to carry out those works along with MTW. We have also, along the process, taken further feedback from MPs and the depots because during this process, as you could imagine, there were roads that perhaps were not on any list, but these roads have been mentioned by a number of people in the public. So we didn't just ignore persons. And I guess I want to make the point that I follow my social media very closely for the comments of where people express concerns, whether it is about transport, whether it is about the buses, whether it is about the roads, whether it's about potholes. And we've pulled out from that list another set of roads that Prime Minister has, at the end of the last estimates, was able to grant to the ministry another $10 million to be able to continue the work that we have started. So what we are going to do in the next few weeks is that we are going to hit each of the constituencies. You're not going to get 10 roads, so don't get that out of your head. But you will probably see 2 or 3 roads in this first phase being done across each of the 30 constituencies so that we start to bring some relief to the inner communities now, not just the main roads, but we will do a couple more roads in each constituency. So I beg you to just be patient with your MPs, trust that they have fed the information into us and that we are working assiduously to be able to identify the roads that can be mill and paved and then the roads that will require more design. I'll speak briefly as well about the design because there are some roads that require us to do deeper designs because they require full rehabilitation. And by full rehabilitation, I mean the sidewalks, the curbs, all the drainage, all of those things are required. So those were not works that we could put under an accelerated mill and pave program. We had to pull those out, and now we have to measure, we have to basically do all of the testing, we have to allow the contractors to be able to do the design and build so that they're in a position now to tell us, well, roughly how much are these projects going to cost, and then the Ministry of Finance, I trust, will allow us to be able to have another set of money to be able to continue the roadworks program. Now that is just mill and pave, and perhaps that impacts more significantly on the people of the city. But I couldn't come this evening without telling you about the other work that is happening in MTW, because many of you will come to the East Coast picnic, the Heroes Day picnic, in just a week. And you, I hope, will drive on some of the sweet roads leading to East Coast. A lot of the design work has to be done in the Scotland district. It is not as straightforward as you may think in terms of mill and pave. And we've been spending a lot of time, both Dr. Springer, who I see in the back, Ramel, and myself, working with the construction teams to be able to get the roads now in the rural corridor, to get those roads done. I stand here this evening proud to tell you that Dr. Springer has led the charge in relation to the roads in the Scotland district. And White Hill in St. Andrew, and I single this out because Barbados Labour Party people know why I say White Hill. The people of White Hill were abandoned. The people of White Hill were told go and live somewhere else. And the Barbados Labour Party took it upon itself to make the determination that we would find a way to keep the people in White Hill safely. It is what I spoke about earlier about keeping people in place, but you have to do it safely. Dr. Springer and the team at Complant, the Chinese team that is working on the project, and the consultants have been able to complete the paving, am I correct, of phase 1 has been completed, and they're on to phase 2 of White Hill, and there's also a phase 3. So the project that many people thought would never get off the ground, this Barbados Labour Party administration has been able to bring some relief to the people of St. Andrew. And I don't need to remind you that, we don't have the luxury of picking and choosing who we help. Because we got I still believe we got all 30 seats. Because I think the people in Christchurch South understand what time it is. So as far as I'm concerned, we have 30 seats. And we will have our 30 seats whenever that time comes. Because I think the people understand what has transpired. And I honestly believe that, with the 30 seats comes responsibility as a government, that we cannot do what others have done and pick and choose which minister get what. We have to make sure that we properly prioritize and we allocate resources accordingly so that everybody gets a little piece of the pie. And I say that with all sincerity because I understand that everybody wants everything. Right? Every time we in parliamentary group or in cabinet, everybody complaining that the residents complaining to them and keeping them under pressure. And I really want to say to you, we're going to get there. We've started the process. We're going to get there. But you also have to understand that sometimes you got to look back at the road that we have traveled to see that there were no road works being done for almost a decade of any significance, unless they were being done in constituencies held by Democratic Labour Party ministers. So I don't have the luxury. There were people who said to me, but Santi, why you didn't do the roads in your constituency first? I said, no, we can get to St. Michael's Southeast. But I don't have the luxury of going and making my people happy, and then I can't come to cabinet and parliamentary group and sit down with my colleagues, because they will not let me sit well. So I had to make sure that everybody get a little piece, and then the people of St. Michael's Southeast can also benefit from the roads. Because I can't be minister and not also be able to deliver to the people of my constituency as well. But I understand my role is to level the playing field so everybody get a little piece. There are some people who will get more roads than others, but there are some who will get healthcare facilities in their community. There are some people who will get housing in their community, while others may not get the developments that they are looking for. That is the reality when you have 30 seats that have been bestowed on you as a government, that you have to be more clinical in the way that you prioritize precious resources. You can't just liquidate the money just because. You got to treat it like you're running a household. So therefore, you have to make sure that you're able to allocate properly so that you can see the returns on investment as well. But that brings me to the issue of Murphy Pasture. Work is ongoing at Murphy Pasture. We have been able to put in place the preventative maintenance that is required for Murphy pasture, which, as many of you know, if that area is not properly cleaned, it has a major impact on other areas of the city when it comes to flooding. And so I want to signal to not only the residents of this city, but all Barbadians. We have a major problem with littering. And I don't feel that we should have to keep reminding people. But you know, if you don't repeat yourself, sometimes people forget, right? This Barbados belongs to us. And we need to take greater care of our environment. A lot of the things that you drop on the ground, a lot of these plastics that we have tried our best to eliminate as much as possible with the plastic bags, they are cluttering up the drains. Because if you don't dispose of them properly, they come into the gutters, they come into the drains. It could be sweetie wrapping papers, it could be chocolate bar papers, it could be the same snow cone cups. These are the things that we are finding when we start to do the cleaning that are not there because a high wind blow and blow them into the drains. They are there because of indiscriminate dumping by ordinary Barbadians and our tourists who have no regard for what the impact is on the environment. And I say to you that, again, we as a government will do what we have to do to make sure we put things in place. But good God, all of us pay for all of these things, all the equipment, all the additional labor. We have to pay for all of these things, whether when you dump and when we dump, somebody has to pay for it. So we have to leave here this evening understanding that our responsibility is not just to highlight to the government what it ought to be doing, but it is also about looking back at yourself. You know, they say when you're pointing fingers, the finger's pointing back at you. What are our responsibilities as a people as well to make sure that we are not dumping and creating additional problems for the drainage department? You know, I mean, we are lucky with the Kensington New Road. We were able to bring some relief there. I must tell you that the work there is not complete because I fixed that road primarily because of the condition, because we had MPC laying mains, Water Authority going in to lay some pipes, but we're also getting ready to upgrade the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant as well, because many of the houses in those districts are not connected to the sewage project. And in order to, again, improve the conditions that people in the city and the surrounding areas are living under, it is our responsibility, while we are planning for those things, to still make ordinary Barbadians comfortable. And I said to Corey, and I said to the Muslim community and to the people who traverse that area, that it is not fair that you see open gutters constantly, breeding of mosquitoes taking place in these areas in the city. And when I was minister responsible for water, while we were looking at the plans for the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant, I said to them, we're going to have to include in this a cost for drainage to ensure that we are able to figure out how do we capture a lot of the water prior to it getting to the Kensington New Road area and to the Fontebelle area, to ensure that we do not have the repeats in terms of flooding, causing problems for people in the low-lying areas. And that, thankfully, the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant, I think by the end of 2027, that will be completed. The design phase is ongoing presently. And then after that, they have to do the tendering process. Then it has to obviously go to construction. But the timelines right now for that are closer than I think we have ever been, because a lot of work has to go on in order to be able to prepare for the construction and the civil works that have to be done in these various communities. Now, I move on quickly to housing. Because as I started, I said to you that Barbadians are worried about a number of things. And I share a constituency which, even before Corey, Lieutenant Colonel Bostic, and I walked the city canvassing, going house to house, having a little bit of breadfruit and tuna, where we made our stops as well along the way. And it was clear to me that while I have the largest housing area in the country, in the Pine and Wildy area, that the city had a different dynamic than I was accustomed to. I could identify blocks within my community. There are probably like maybe 6 or 7 main areas where you see people liming. But when you go into the city, you have a block almost on every single corner. You have a block of old people, you have a block of young people, you have a block of people from the region. You got a block of every demographic possible in the city. And I remember saying to Colonel Bostic at the time, boy, anything I have, I gotta give you a little piece, because clearly the resources that you need in the city are far greater than what I at times may even require for St. Michael Southeast or even in Kirk's area. We are all St. Michael constituencies, and really we are only separated by a line in terms of a road sometimes. And a lot of people have the girlfriends in St. Michael South Central, as they do in the city, the outside children, you know. The city is one big area. St. Michael is one big area. Never mind all of the different constituencies. But people do things in St. Michael together. Let's just put it that way, okay? And for that reason, it is important that we understand that a lot of people, because of the overcrowding, a lot of people want to ease the pressure in the households. And housing, therefore, for this administration, has become one of the front burner issues in terms of being able to find housing solutions. The truth is that COVID presented a number of challenges for us in terms of, being able to get the same supply chain issues. It created issues in terms of also the pandemic, having to deal with, doing things within the middle of the pandemic. And then you had Hurricane Elsa, which also has set us back. And so there are a number of people, both in the city and in all of the St. Michael areas across Barbados, who have been on waiting lists for a number of years. So it isn't to say that the government does not appreciate and understand that we have to find solutions. We have said we're going to try to build the 10,000 homes, and we've already started the process. The minister is on record as highlighting all of the various projects across the country, not any one area, but across the country, where housing projects are being done. And we can see those projects taking place and emerging across the landscape. Now, I have a project in St. Michael Southeast that I want built like yesterday, because I keep telling my colleagues that I suffer myself from one of the biggest challenges in terms of housing, because I feel that if, as a country, we're not able to ease the pressure on households, children need to be able to sit down at a table and do the homework when they come home. We take these things for granted, you know. Children need to be able to get that little breathing space so that the house is not so crowded that some ridiculous person don't try to fill them up. Because 6 people sleeping on one mattress. We may think sometimes that we should not be catering for the poor and the most vulnerable. How are they going to pay for these things? But our society suffers when we do not carve out in our social policies the ability to cater for those at the bottom. There are some people that I came to public life and I found struggling. And today they still struggle. And Kirk and I have had long conversations about this. We have them on programs, but again, despite being on programs, you have something called intergenerational poverty. Sometimes the social services assist, yes, but they go so far. So we had a scenario, I think it was during the estimates I shared with Kirk, of a lady who was being moved from her accommodation. And at the time, she was given the vouchers to be able to move into another accommodation. And they gave her vouchers, I think it was for the fridge and for the stove, for which I'm exceptionally grateful to the welfare department for doing that. But one of the issues was that when she went to the company that provides the supplies, the beds and the refrigerators and the stoves, they told her that she had to pay for the delivery fee. Now, the lady ain't working. She have 5 children in the household. And she can't pay the delivery fee. Now, Kirk and I spoke about this, and this is why I talk about the ability of us as MPs, but also as colleagues, to be able not to criticize, but to call a spade and to say, look, the systems that we have may not be working as well as they should for the people for whom the resources are intended. Let us fix it. And together we were able to find a resolution so that instead of leaving the things at the store, when the woman need the fridge and the stove so the children could go to school, that we were able to assist her to be able to have the resources to get those items out of the store. And these are things that perhaps need to be relooked and rethought within the department, which I know Kirk is looking at, because these are the day-to-day things that, in a sense, give people a hand, but then it never gives them the ability to really get off the ground. And so while we've been doing the assistance for many years, the reality is that we may have to modify what type of assistance we are giving so that people can start with a clean slate and be able to hit the ground running. Because if every time you turn the corner, you're going to still be finding extra money to pay for something, then you will never get off the ground. And that is why I'm pleased that the one family, the household mitigation, that these things have been put in place to be able to ease some of these households. Can it be better? It can always be better. I can always build roads better. I can always get potholes filled faster. But what we have done is we have started the process of deconstructing a lot of our ministries, a lot of our departments, with a view to being able to make those improvements across the entire country. And I won't stand here and tell you that we fixed everything, because we haven't. I know that we fixed a lot more than the last administration. And I know that while they are in George Street fighting and trying to get headlines tomorrow morning, I know that this Barbados Labour Party administration is continuing to out the fires to make Bajans breathe a little bit easier. So while they will want to curse us, as Kurt said, they want to send people on the call-in programs, they want to criticize Corey for the work that he's been doing with the young people and on the blocks and trying to bring down the levels of violence in the country, the reality is that this administration understands philosophically that we have a responsibility not to do one thing to the exclusion of others, but to make sure that we are firing on all cylinders. That as much as we can, that we continue to ease the pressure. That we answer to the things that each of you have concerns about. Because there's no point in us coming here and talking about policies if at the end of the day we are not taking the time as well to talk to you about the things that daily you are confronting. So with the housing, we know people need housing. We have started the process of doing it. Is it as fast as we would like? By no means it isn't. But what we know is that we have an aggressive program to be able to make sure that we can improve the households across the country. Now, the last thing I want to talk about quickly is Cricket World Cup. Because much has been said that we only spending money on roads and, painting up places and doing all kinds of stuff at Kensington Oval because World Cup cricket is coming. And I want Barbadians to realize that it is not about World Cup cricket alone, because you have to understand that there are moments where, as we work to whether it is an event, whether it is selling Barbados to the rest of the world, that we are able to put monies into activities to be able to generate economic activities, not for today, but for the future. Now, improvements to Kensington Oval is not a wasted expenditure. What they should be talking about is the school meal center up St. Philip, which still hasn't been completed, but which we have been working on to complete. So when they talk about cost overruns on the whole projects and on the steel structures, they do not want me to take tails out of school, because many of them need to know that when they point the fingers are pointing back. Y'all remember the St. John Polyclinic? Over $20-something million in cost overruns. But between the two political leaders, they don't have recent memory of these things anymore. And this is not an exercise in pointing a finger on the deeds of the last administration. Because the reality is, from time to time, all administrations, there are things that go wrong. That's the reality. You're planning a project. Sometimes you're rushing to do the project. Sometimes all of the ducks don't line up in a row, but you're trying to meet the targets. That's a reality. But the intent in terms of what we have been trying to do on our housing program in particular is beyond question acting in the interest of the people of this country. And so when we talk about what are the benefits for World Cup, there are people in this community who will have the benefit of being able to participate in World Cup. Ambassador Lynch has indicated, and I think you spoke about it earlier, the program that is going to have the collection of the database of all of these persons who have skills within the community, seeing how you can deploy those persons to be able to participate within Cricket World Cup. We're not doing the level of painting that we did at the last World Cup, but the reality is that the improvements in terms of infrastructure are plenty. And I took a little time to look at infrastructural projects which are taking place in the city alone. You've got the Pierhead project. You've got the NCF moving from Warrens and coming to Queen's Park, with plans to have an amphitheater there where people can do the spoken word in recognition and acknowledgement of people like Marcus Messiah Garvey. These are things that are going to be important for the city. In addition to all that we do in terms of housing and roads, there are activities that are taking place in terms of infrastructure in the city that starts to make the city more attractive. The Treasury building is also supposed to have accommodation there. And there are lots of other projects that are taking place that will bring a different look, a different feel to the city of Bridgetown. None of this can happen if there is no vision. You know, they say if there's no vision, the people perish, but there got to be a vision. The only regret is that perhaps the things should have been done before. But the good thing is that because of our economic team and because of the efforts of Prime Minister Motley, we have been able to restructure our debt. We have been able to put the country on a more sound footing to be able now to capitalize on a lot of not only the social programs, but also putting in place a lot of the infrastructural projects that will allow your son and your daughter to be able to find work as well. And there are several other programs that this administration has done. The Construction Gateway, trying to train up people to be able to work within the construction industry, trying to ensure that people in the communities are able to have skills, because if without the skills, you might not be able to find the work because you may not be academic. Or in some cases, you have people who are academic and still have a skill. But what we have done is brought more programs to be able to allow more people to have options which you ordinarily did not have previously. These are the things that this administration has been doing. And I say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am proud to be a Barbados Labour Party member. I am proud to be a part of a government that is relentless in getting up every single day to do right by the people of this country. The criticisms do not matter. What matters is that we get people in houses, that people breathe a little easier driving on the road, that we protect our children, who are our most vulnerable as well in our society, that we bring legislation to make sure that we can protect our elderly so that the pension check don't go to a relative that doing other things with it. That we are able for the first time to be able to place a young, vibrant young man into the Attorney General's office to be able to assist with crime prevention. Kirk was able to deal with the blue economy. We created a blue economy ministry. Not because we just can, because we're looking for work for a minister, but because we understood climate change. We understood how vulnerable we are, not just in the city, but across Barbados. And we understood that we have to start to do things differently because we cannot just rely on agriculture and tourism anymore. That Barbadians must be able to understand the journey on which we want to take them. And the only way to do that is by certainly us coming to you and talking, not talking at you, but being given the opportunity to talk with you as well. And so this evening, I want to leave you with a reminder that this administration has only just started its journey. We are still on the journey to where we need to be. The journey is not over. Because we've gotten over a little bit of the bumps, it doesn't mean that the journey does not continue. But what we all are, collectively, are committed to making life better for all Barbadians. Not Democratic Labour Party Barbadians, not Barbados Labour Party Barbadians, but for all Barbadians. And I ask you to continue to support the government, to continue to support your representatives. It is challenging at times because of the volume and the commitment of what we have to do at the national level. So we get the disgruntlement sometimes that comes when you don't hear an MP. We get it. But I want to assure you that we are all working to improve the quality of the systems that deliver services to each and every one of you in the communities. And my last word would be to invite all of you, Barbados Labour Party, Democratic Labour Party, both political leaders of the Democratic Labour Party, all of their supporters, to come to the Barbados Labour Party picnic. Come and, no, we welcome all. We welcome all. We welcome all. Our mind is made up who is our leader, so we don't have a problem. We're good. But I encourage you to come out on National Heroes Day as we acknowledge the work of Sir Grantley Adams, who has basically been the person who has given us the right to vote in this country. A lot of times we forget that the right to vote is as important as the right to free education. And while we recognize the work of former Premier Errol Walton Barrow, we also have to recognize the work of all of our leaders and all of the people who have paved the way for each and every one of us, for Kurt, for Ramel, for Corey, for myself, and all others, to be able to do what we do in the name of the people. So I invite you to come out in your numbers, to be able to join the Barbados Labour Party family. Let us celebrate, let us chart the way forward, and to do so safely and enjoy the roads on the way to East Coast. Thank you.
Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, whoa, whoa. It is not placed on me to do the voter thanks, but it would really be remiss of me not to stand here to say a few words to my two colleagues, both on the left and on the right, to say, ladies and gentlemen, look at the caliber of people we have in the Barbados Labour Party. No, seriously. Because when you think of, when you listen and you hear all the things that they have spoken about, the way that they've spoken about it, they ain't only bright, but they're caring. And I just get even more frightened and more nervous. Because I know in this country, we do a little, let me give some other people a chance. But even before I had children, but now I got children, I used to be real frightened with that. Because imagine if you was to put this society with challenges after challenges, war after war, problem after problem, in the hands of people that are not fighting issues like us, but fighting each other in George Street. Imagine if we had to do that. Not politically, no, but really for your families and your children and your future and your parents. Imagine if you had to put the affairs of this country in these turbulent times in those people's hands. So that is why I felt a burning in me, really to get up and to really thank my two colleagues for coming here and giving me this support. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give them the round of applause of the century. This vote of thanks, I want to thank everyone. I want to particularly thank the immediate past president and her team for coming out and supporting. It means a lot to me, to my heart. I see members of the peace program here. Thank you. The dream team, tomorrow Parliament, I see you. And I have to ask you to put your hands together for the other two parliamentarians that joined us while we were speaking. The Honorable Neil Rowe from St. Michael Northwest. And Dr. the Honorable Ramel Springer from St. Andrew. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over back to the president to get any other business and other things going on. But I remember that Kurt reminded me that while he was talking, he wanted to remind you all about the online form for welfare. You don't necessarily have to go down to welfare anymore. There's an online form. You can reach out and get that form. I know my CA has it, and I'm sure all the CAs have that online form. They can share that with you. The Deputy Prime Minister reminded you of the picnic, but of course, while I was speaking, the political leader, the CEO, the chairman, all of them would like you to be reminded about the picnic next Monday. Let me come together as a family. Oh, this hard work. Oh, this stress. We working real hard. We got to relax and play hard too. So next week, Monday is the day. Don't miss it or you diss it. I can hand back over to the president to carry on the other business, and I thank you all very much. We can have some refreshments and talk afterwards.